The Proposal, A New Arrival, Dao Buddha, by Medusa D.B. Loveheart, The Last Warlock, Ancient Warlock, A New Age Alchemist, Part 1, Attention. This book might just demolish the relative reality you are living in today completely. That said, please do enjoy the reading. This is a very complex book to read, mostly because of the nature of metaphysics. Just like some movies, there will be contexts and senses that won't be obvious until you have reached a certain point in this book. You will not be able to see this book's picture in completeness, this entire book and its purpose, until you have actually read the complete book in its completeness. That means that even this book's cover is a part of this book in its very own picture of completeness. This book contains a language in a bit different form of English in some places, and I'd like to call it opposite directional reggae English. I usually like to shorten the expression to directional reggae English since opposite thinking is already a part of that tool. The name of the common tongue for the bespoken form of English, the directional reggae English that is, in any tongue, is by me defined as Orbish, whereas many other people probably has gotten to understand it as language of soul. There will be a more detailed description of how to understand it in my introduction and throughout this entire book. However, if I don't provide you this very information, you might not have been able to as early as possible understand how you shall relate to its content. You will always be the head character in this book, in the sense of, this book is actually a conversation between you, the reader that reads this text, and me, the author that wrote this book. Except it's all about how you are responding and experiencing the feelings you get while reading different types of content. I will, however, every now and then make personal comments on the content in order to show where in this book we actually are with different synopsis. You will have to read the vital information part in this book in order to give yourself a fair chance. Trust me on this one. In other words, when I am talking, I'm simply sharing my opinion of what has been represented on our table of presentation. Our table of presentation is visualized in your mind with a table free of your own taste, and gathered around it is you in any form you like, and me as the demon of time. Medusa D.B. Loveheart, an elemental relative. Every now and then I will sometimes just stop the whole picture and make recaps of what has happened and clarify things when I find that there is enough information now on the table in order for me to be able to show you an exact example that I believe that even if we might not agree, we will both be able to understand that we can see the same point from the same page in the same direction. By doing this every now and then, I know you will understand absolutely everything that I talk about. By the time you actually have read the entire book, form the front side of this book till its opposite side, as well as all the content within it. This book, that is. You will have seen the world in so many angles that you will be able to see things with a new pair of eyes. Figuratively speaking, read this first, or at least read the book entirely from the beginning to the end if you want to give yourself a fair chance to understand the content of this book. Defining metaphysical terminology, directional reggae English introduction, understanding. An analog photographic picture always contains of one negative and one positive picture. You create the positive image, the one that you will keep and show to friends, out of the negative picture, the one that was captured on the film itself with help of the camera. The positive opposite is naturally the negative. 2 in 1, sort of speaking, and is an important understanding in advanced opposite reflective thinking. This book is an advanced compilation of code where I sometimes use the negative to shape out the positive corrects understanding direction, where, as while calibrating the future, that's the best behavioral pattern to reveal any secrets that the future might behold for us. Every word in this book is in an English form that combines English with Latin melodies in a directional reggae format of truth. It involves starters and stoppers, introducing a bubble picture that you will see a lot of in this book, and lots of other behavior patterns. Opposite behavior patterns, even though all words and sentences are easy enough for everyone to actually make sense at some point, but always enough points so that no matter how complex I will get, you will always be able to see what it is that we are actually looking at. When you describe a behavior, you can basically refer to anything no matter what you choose to explain it with. The picture you will be presented will also include an explanation of what behavior parts and elements you actually are referring to. I will compare behavioral patterns from movies, myths, legends, and stories, all depending on what it is that I'm describing to you for that very moment. In this book, there will always be a new beginning whenever there is an end. In this book, truth will always be accepted as a picture of completeness. In other words, there won't be anything that will exclude anything. Everything is always on, just like nothing is. Nothing might be a concept of hard to understand. Luckily, this book will change that fact for you. You will also get to know nothing is metaverse and can be considered as an already existing nested parallel universe in our existence. No matter how confused you feel about reading this text, you have already understood everything you so far have read, even though it will have taken some time to get here. Your understanding will constantly grow for each word that you progress, and the change will always be constant. By that fact, you will hereby experience what it's like to read directional reggae English. It will be direct, reflect, engines and motors, fuels and engines, opposites and dimensional. It will have rhythm and will be predictable, and it will be the most awesome experience you probably have had. Hehe, one more thing though. Don't worry. And we are still cool from my point of view. I already know we are different from each other. This book is divided in several parts. First part is the calibration of where we are today and how we got here with evolution in all its glory and failures, as well as many relative realities we all exist in. Some of them we pass through in life without even reflecting over that we actually have crossed that path, and for some those might be the very core in their reality. Some of them are rarities while others are everyday common sense. This part contains lots of metaphysics and behavioral maps. You will also follow my journey as the last warlock. Medley here I resume and reflect over what's been shared so far. The second part is the composure and compilation of my very own ism, Dao Buddhism, covering parts of the way of the Dao Buddhist monk and Dao Buddhism, covering the ism's fundamentals. It shows you how to relate to the ism as a follower no matter if you have a lifestyle where your lifestyle doesn't have that much room for isms and faith, as well as showing it as a lifestyle in completeness. Medley here I resume and reflect over what's been shared so far. The third part is just a step-by-step guide that will lead the people of this earth into the best direction for this opportunity of life with the human species in it. This part also sums up my very own humble definition of what I consider to be a higher civilization form of existence where peace is an equally strong and important fuel and engine as chaos is in the sense of evolutionary progress. That's just the way it is. For everyone, don't worry. It's not an end. It's just another beginning. This book contains many sentences ending. Wherever one ends, another one starts, throughout the entire book. And when you have read the entire book, you are still the one holding this book. Hopefully you will have a more beautiful world to look upon and maybe even a little bit more hope for tomorrow. Don't forget that you are truly the main character of this book. You will stumble upon a methodology I'd like to call dry martini in the sense of direction as follow. Just like the drink, your feelings might get either shaken or stirred or even both at the same time. Sometimes the cause will be because of my weird sense of humor and sometimes because we are touching sensitive topics. Sometimes my comments might be out of instructional nature such as, you might want to take a seat in the coming part. I'm saying these things mostly because I know what the next part will be about, but I don't know who you are, so since I'm asking you to hear me out fair and square, I hereby show you that just like you are human, so am I, and even though we don't know each other, we can at least try to give each other a fair chance, even if we both know that we might not agree on everything. So, if you, for example, are holding a brew in your hand, or drinking something, you might swallow it in the wrong throat, or maybe lose track of focus on your surrounding and spill your brew on something or someone. Because the content will be sometimes extremely naked and display the truth, just like it can be with no censorship or cover-ups. In other words, lots of delicate matters such as social behaviors, sexuality, war, peace, hate, love, sex, relations, and many other topics in order to show you our past, present, and future possibilities. Directional Reggae English 1-on-1, talking in pictures. I'd preferably like to consider a DNA strain of content bubbles, or as you might easiest understand it, each bubble can be compared to the similar behavior several modern books and movies such as The Matrix, with Neo and Morpheus directed to an older audience, but also Harry Potter, which is the example I use here for the screen shown in Harry Potter's movie, that describes quite well what books and poetry and songs truly are about, as well as sculptures and paintings, where you see Professor Dumbledore extracting and dragging out a silver string, a piece of memory from his mind with his magic wand, and storing that DNA strain of content bubbles / memory in a bottle. And this book is both my cabinet, storing several hundreds of bottles, as well as my memory bowl. This is also an understanding, as well right here in the understanding starter and stopper. It gives you a complete picture of what content is included in the understanding. Sometimes there might be nested understandings, more than just one within one larger understanding, and then you might just need to take it a bit slow and look at the content as both a picture and a text. More figuratively speaking, you are doing just fine, honey. Let's move on. You will also learn a methodology that's called Scotch and Soda. I learned the expressional art form from a shopping window when I was walking the Damraken Street in Amsterdam. It was a window dresser that had made a clothing display under the theme/clothing style, Scotch and soda, and it was completely perfectly done. He had worked with optical illusion methods by lifting up what normally is considered as the negative in the picture and blended both the negative lines with the positive lines. One window doll appeared to have 3 legs, but when you looked closer it didn't. The scene was so perfectly composed there was no doubt that that couldn't be anything else but Scotch and soda. The way the window dresser had worked everything in that window kind of was one and the same entity, and yet it was perfectly clear it was made out of several entities and people. The perfect illustration of what Scotch and soda is like when done with clothing. I use it in the same way, but my pictures in completeness are made out of words and mentalities, behavioral patterns and engines. With everything and nothing. Scotch is a whiskey made in Scotland. Whiskey comes in 5 different categories, more or less. A whiskey can have many different behaviors when it comes to flavors for your taste, but also the way it's been created. Soda is bubbly water with no alcohol and thereby out of different nature, at least right here and now. These two blended together makes the cocktail Scotch and soda. In this understanding, it's important to understand that even if the drink Scotch and soda is the end result entity referred to, it does also include that before it became the combined new entity Scotch and soda, they were 2 separate entities. In other words, here Scotch and soda is also a behavioral pattern where 2 entities are blended together, and the outcome of this process in time is the actual drink/cocktail Scotch and soda, where the Scotch all of a sudden has gained a new behavior of bubbles, and the soda has gotten the element of alcohol and lots of other taste teasers. So here, the expression Scotch and soda is a behavior in time with the behavior of someone/something blending it, and that has an outcome of a cocktail. Even though when I use it here it's less likely that I'm referring to 2 different liquid entities being blended together, it doesn't even need to be limited to only 2 either. It's a base tool that is used in many places, and as conceptual picture, a more touchable phrase for people to use. This is an alchemy of behaviors and patterns and directional outcomes into whatever the result is. EXO is a neutral formula of it's just another direction, and is used in this book to show you that there is an ongoing relation that might not be too obvious but out of major importance since it excludes any other type of understanding/interpretation of that particular content. So whenever the EXO formula is found in a content here, it means that the text before the EXO is the base plate. /starting point, and the text that comes after it is where it's directed heading towards /next plate. The EXO formula is always tied to its content appearance own bubble picture. However, the direction always goes both ways, but only in the direction stated. Other directions are still true, but since this isn't just a book about metaphysics, but also containing an ism, the direction is always important in relation to the base of the ism. The content outside the ism will only show an understanding from the ism's point of view and will never alter the ism's base itself. The ism itself is covered in the second part of this book. Variable/S. It's a common terminology within computer programming world, but its behavioral pattern can actually be found in quite many places outside the IT world. You will find it a lot in metaverse. A variable is something that is created by its creator/programmer. You could compare a variable with an empty box that you yourself has built, and the shape of the box is limited to your imagination. Then you fill that box up with some sort of content. In the IT world, you usually fill those boxes with numbers, counters, command phrases, or just simply yes or no. Long time ago, people used to describe feelings by inventing/creating/achieving a god/state of mind and total awareness that represented that particular feeling with all its glory and danger. And that's actually how advanced each and every single feeling within us is. And that's how advanced the power variables are within metaverse. An example of such variables are Freyja, an ancient Norse goddess that represents the element and dimension of love and is the fertility goddess. If you look at our world history throughout our evolutionary timeline, you will easily see that it's a common concept all over the world, and that every country has their own unique set of them in their history and myths. Looking into your country's myths and folklore, explaining things their own way. These types of variables are quite complex to create because it's not only about making a feeling more touchable, but also a complete description of its entire nature as a mood, action, what it's like to give it, and what it's like to receive it, as well as the denial of it. to not receive it when it has been given to you, or to not respond to it even if you chose to receive it. It also reveals how you can choose to coexist with it. You are able to find such variables all over the world. The laughing Buddha is a major great example of the preservation and clarification of the importance of humor and heartily laughter, as well as real great life quality and true happiness. Even in your everyday life you stumble upon power variables, only you have come to understand and know them as logotypes and slogans for different companies. Power variables can be found anywhere, even in nature itself, and you will find them in this book itself. Just like the book itself is one, metaphysics. If you look the word up on Wikipedia, you will find a similar explanation. The word derives from the Greek words mu epsilon tau, meta, meaning beyond or after, and phi upsilon sigma iota kappa, physica, meaning physical, referring to those works on matter by Aristotle in antiquity. The prefix meta, beyond, was attached to the chapters in Aristotle's work that physically followed after the chapters on physics in posthumously edited collections. Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that investigates principles of reality transcending those of any particular sciences. Metaphysics is about the untouchable in the sense of not measurable with tools of /for physics. In order to understand metaphysics, you must also understand physics. The metaphysical universe is basically the tree of exist and the source of all life. It is called metaverse and is more complex and advanced with all the energies and coexistent metaphysical dimensions, astral planes, and domains. I will give you some examples of concepts that belongs to the metaphysical formula science. Relations? The relation itself belongs to metaphysics because you can touch the entities where the relation exists between, but you can't touch the relation itself in the sense of physical unbounded relationships. You can't touch the relation you have to / with other people, as well as other physical entities, even though you can touch both yourself and the other physical objects. Relations exist between everything and anything. There is relations everywhere. Relation has many different values. It can be in the state of friendly, lovingly, hatefully, neutral, presence within yourself, unaware, aware. Just to mention a few of all the different kinds of values the variable relation can contain. Exist, the source and foundation for all existence in universe. There truly is no beginning and no end. Science says it all started with a Big Bang, which is a quite dared thing to say, especially concerning the limitations science has. To believe that from a single planet in a universe we should be able to see and understand the size of the entire universe is not just foolish, it makes no sense whatsoever. Truth is no one knows how large it is. Eternity is a quite long time to say, because you understand that universe existed for a couple of billion years. You can reach a conclusion of when it started. You only admit that you are afraid to see the truth as it is. If there has been a Big Bang, there is still no way to tell what was before, since there was something before, and there is no way to see if there was another one before the one they claim happened with an equal or longer existence than this one, and another one before that, and before that how many other Big Bangs there have ever been. Science is also limited in the understanding of how large universe actually is, since we can only see as far as our own tools allows to, and today we can see very far with all kinds of telescopes and so forth. But truth is they are still limited. Again, science is limited to tell if there has been other so-called Big Bangs on very extremely distant places in almost same time as well. If you take your kitchen table, for example, when it's empty and place a coffee cup there, then imagine that that coffee cup is symbolizing how far we are able to see in universe. You will then realize that we can't really see much at all, and we actually have no idea if there has been another Big Bang in same time somewhere else on that kitchen table, which is easily illustrated by simply placing another coffee cup on another spot. We actually have no clue whatsoever of how far / large universe actually is, nor for how long it has existed. The beauty of this is that you still chose to limit yourself. What the heck do I mean with that? Well, you were able to see that universe is quite big because of the kitchen table, but you failed to see that the universe doesn't really end there now, does it? Isn't it so that the kitchen table itself is actually located in a kitchen, meaning the entire kitchen is actually representing universe? And it still doesn't end there, cause the kitchen is in your apartment, and the apartment is in your building, and the building is on your street, and the street is in your city, which is in your country, which is on the planet, which is in this solar system, which is in our galaxy, which is in space. And we are still just talking about a single coffee cup that symbolizes a so-called Big Bang, as well as the size of universe. With this picture in your head, isn't it quite silly to claim that infinity is hard to understand? Ask yourself, Is it so wise to say that we don't exist in infinity already, to say that there isn't anything else left to be found out? If the size of our universe is symbolized with a single coffee cup, isn't it quite easy to see that we actually have quite a lot to explore and find out, that there is, to put it frankly, it is but loads for us, and that all the weird hate and wars we have among us on this one planet is quite pathetic considering what we have ahead of us. With this single coffee cup, isn't it quite easy to see that eternity isn't really that strange anymore, that there actually is more likely that there has been several, or to put it frankly again, but loads of similar phenomena throughout our eternal existence already. With this single coffee cup, isn't it quite moronic to actually walk around and believe that we for some reason would be alone in universe? Again, you're making a mistake. What? Yeah. I'm talking about eternity now. As with infinity, you stopped at the kitchen table as if the space/room didn't continue further. Same thing here, you forget that there are hours before you sat down by the table, days and weeks and months, even years before that, with loads of dinners, sex, tea, coffee at the very same table, and before that the table was manufactured raw material, that before that was trees or metals or sand. That came to be from other natural miracles. You forget that the table and coffee cup will transform into shards and dust and give birth to new phenomena, and so it will go on for an eternity into infinity and so on. Time is a dimension of its own, and I'm the demon of that dimension. More of that later on, dear. We have now taken a look upon exist's meaning of eternity into infinity. Exist is one of the core variables in Dao Buddhism, and it stands for quite many things and derives partly from Dao. It is the source of all energies in metaverse and universe, of all dimensions, astral planes, and elements. Exist is the foundation for all nature, that is a natural part of exist. Exist contains the domain and dimension of death, love, the force, time, love, true faith, metaverse, and universe. Exist is the positive for metaverse, where nature is the negative for universe, where exist is the negative for metaverse, where nature is the positive for exist. Nature is the gift of life and a true blessing from exist. Nature is the miracle of life, forms participating and endorsing the energies from exist. Nature contains natural codes and spirits in all life, not just birds, wolves, fish and so, but also trees, mountains, valleys, oceans, lakes, and the wind. Nature contains the domain and dimension of life, love, true faith, biology, physics, elements. Nature is the positive for universe, where exist metaverse is the negative. Exist and nature is our only reason we are here today, the only true roots of everything in universe. The one and only true reason any life form has an opportunity to participate in this magnificent opportunity of life. Time, the dimension. Time is a natural outcome of existence and nature itself, because of the fact of space containing the universal circle of existence, with planets, suns, supernovas, black holes, in a never-ending ocean of endless implosions and rebirths of new galaxies all over universe, that's always pulsing and beating rhythms of energy forces beyond earthly co-existential purposes, creating an existence in constant movement, where time always exists as a natural outcome because of the fact of space and movement. Time isn't really measurable in the sense that we don't yet have an instrument that gives a reading of how much of it there is. Sure, we have the time watch and the stopwatch that starts and stops time, but it only shows you where in time things happen with an exact amount of seconds or hours, or whatever it shows on the display, just like a watch that only displays where in time we are in relation to Earth time mostly. But if the watch isn't there or stops time, time doesn't go away, it's still there. Time is actually a mass in the sense there is no line of time, but it's everywhere, and all time eventually ends up in the time mass ancient, and that mass isn't beyond you or before you, but it's everywhere and nowhere. Traveling or journeying in time is actually doable, but you have to understand that it's not done physically yet, but metaphysically. With mind, spirit, soul, and heart in the force. We have objectified time in order to take advantage of the fact that we exist in it. Time is based on relations in the eye of science formula science. You can't touch time, you can only measure it if you chose to limit it to a smaller picture, and if you decide the rules of it. Time here on planet Earth has been defined by relations of our planet, its moon, and our galaxy's sun. The moon is only countable into that picture as a factor of day and night time, and as its relational affection on our planet's rotation. Even though it's minor, it still has an effect to it that we normally not consider in everyday time life. The rotation of our planet around its own axis gives us the cycle of 24 hours. Our planet's constant path around the sun gives us the cycle of a year. However, time exists no matter if you are on a planet within a solar system or out in the middle of space itself. Science defines the time in space as space-time. Space-time also shows that time actually is a mass, but in another sense. When in complete empty space-time is still there, but doesn't really get verified till an object moves through it. Might it be a stone/comet or a ship of some sort? Till that object passes through empty space-time, doesn't really reveal itself at all, but is still there. The time on our neighbor planets is not the same as they are here, but we use our own time to give ourselves an understanding about it. Time is also a concept, and could just as well have been measured by ecological lifespan on this very planet. The clocks that we today all see, no matter if they are in digital format or physical artworks, are just display boards that gives us an understanding of where our time is at the moment. We cannot touch time. We can calibrate it, and within that calibration we can calculate with it. Even on this single planet, time has been defined in many different ways already. The Mayan civilization had their own type of definition of it. Time is a full-blood dimension with its own yin-yang, and needs the conditions of movement and space in order to exist as we are used to relate to it. Time is an essence in our existence, and only a matter when looked upon it like that. Time is an estimation as well as a fact. Time is a tool we need to use to understand when. Time tells us the existence of an event. Time gives us direction for past, present, and future. Time is relative. Time is more than that, and a very useful tool. By ripping time out of content, we have been able to objectify it in order to take advantage of it, and we have use for that skill. That doesn't change the fact that in its basic nature still belongs to metaphysics as a dimension in its own picture of completeness. Dao Buddhism. True holy faith religion from ancient. A transparent holy faith religion with no God, but only the force. The true force where true holy faith is your navigation and direction yielder. Where inner harmony and full yielded yin-yangs is only way to harmonize with it. Dao Buddhism is a universal ancient religion that is transparent, covering all isms and religions, as well as science and this planet's evolution, continuing out in universe everlasting growing. In same pace as we are in both universe and metaverse, in other words, and versa. Both universe and metaverse in one and the same expression. To clarify, you mean both. The force is a natural outcome of metaverse, exist, universe, nature. The force is their combined energies in all its relations and directions. The force is everywhere, nowhere, between, anywhere. It has existed as long as exist. To participate actively with coexistence with the force, you must amend the calibrational lifestyle. A lifestyle where you and all your senses just are reading the environment, reading yourself and your own entity's impulses and reaction. A lifestyle where you accept your true nature as the animal human to its fullest, and see the truth in your existence as it is, and not as the world today are trying to shape and form you. Yes, you are still able to function as the rest of the world. To participate as a follower of the force, it takes a commitment in yourself beyond what you have seen before. Follower of the force is a collected expression and an explanation of a participant no matter where your path is. A full-blooded yielder of what force path it is you yourself is or has pathed. I'm the last warlock, ancient warlock today, and paths many paths, not just the warlock path. It's a lifestyle, not a hobby. Everything you do is training, and that in senses and ways most people don't understand. Dao Buddhism contains all schools and mental training in order to reach higher bounds with the force for both the male entity and for the female entity and our lifestyle. Since all humans, no matter sexual equipment between the legs, consists of both a female and a male side, you are able to achieve dual connections with the force as my entity has. To achieve a calibrational lifestyle takes time, determination, and devotion. Adjusting it to the calculational lifestyle is somehow timely as well as hard. When you have achieved that, you can start train in deeper schools of the force. I'm pathing the Grandmaster Force path today as the ancient warlock that I have now evolved into. I have found the paths and lanes and are constantly breaking new ice. Dao Buddhism is the result of a warlock lifestyle, among others. Male and female entity doesn't matter in the sense of harmonic coexistence. People that might recognize the term of the Force from the movies of Star Wars should understand that the Force is, even though it's not exactly as illustrated by George Lucas, It still is, and has lots to it that also is full of harmony. It is just a description of a yielder of the force basically. It happens to be a similar existence, only this is about metaverse. Metaverse is the negative to universe. The versa that reaches beyond the physical world and universe. Metaverse is always in motion in one way or another. Metaverse contains not just energies from all over universe, but also throughout time. Metaverse is the picture of completeness that contains astral planes, terrestrials, and domains, as well as lanes, and the so-called virtual lane of intercommunication. Astral planes contain natures, elements, dimensions, and metascapes presenting schools of all kinds of wisdom and metaskills. The domain of death is an important part of both versa, in other words both metaverse and universe. The circle of death withholds the soul and spirit shards from past life throughout time. Depending on your choices and events in life, your shard will exist or dissolve when your life passes on. Metaverse existed long before life on this planet did, long before the so-called Big Bang that resulted in our galaxy among other sky bodies. Just like universe, metaverse is continuously in directions and stores energies in all life forms and nature universe has provided. Death is a natural part of physical life forms and is by many today treated with fear out of the wrong reasons. We all have one lifetime entity-wise, and most people seem to forget that the time you have alive as a humanoid is supposed to be lived and not done. The duration of a human's life is like a pixel beating a pulse and a tone that will fade away or grow a rhythm. The existence of a life form are truly an eye blink before it ends in universe. When you die, your physical life ends, but your energies either goes into a soul-spirit shard or takes freer forms of existence till they are redistributed by other life forms. Death contains lots of history and wisdom from ancient times. A more beautiful and peaceful place to journey than in domain of death is hard to find. Everything is in perfect harmony, and the ancient wind of wisdom breathes calmly within you. Mind, the calibrating and calculating brain, two different lifestyles from one and the same mass of cells. The calibrating way is measured in awareness, while the calculational way is measured in intelligence. The base for intelligence is always the awareness. Here we will focus on the calibrational lifestyle where mind is in sense of reader and expresser of feelings from your soul and spirit. Thoughts as its own outcome is a metaphysical object since everything you think, dream, mentalities you have, fantasies about, are just different forms of thoughts with different structures processed with one and the same brain and heart. The experience outcome of the chemical reaction within you is a metaphysical phenomenon and a very advanced metaphysical formula science. The experience outcome, and not the actual chemical reaction that is. The brain calibrates both physical impulses as well as meta-impulses. The brain contains the blueprint positive of who your spirit is. The mind defines the so-called mindly matter in metaphysics and is a very important understanding within Dao Buddhism. Spirit, the negative in your brain that is your essence of your own spirit. The blueprint to your total conscious. The blueprint is what defines your will and who you are. The blueprint calibrates your gray brain mass, which is billions of cell blocks called brain cells, and are all working together with several responsibilities. Just like the flame in a room surrounded by heat can even the heat out and balance the energy flow, so does the empty space in your brain collaborate the brain's surrounding energies. The blueprint or spirit interacts with the brain's outer surrounding energies and fuels the blue by reacting on these impulses. Spirits exist in all types of natures, and so does souls. Not just humans or animals, but trees and flowers. Blueprints and grayprints are achievable base plates/foundations where you possess the ability to adjust, plant, grow, and interact with metaphysical behavioral patterns and incarnational prints of energy schemas. They contain lots of important information and reveals paths of the force in all kinds of directions. They are also important schools of understanding, as well as co-existential understandings and achievements needed. Defining nature of meta-patterns in orbish directions. More of this will be covered later on, and you will find other mentionable as silver prints as well. They are negatives of the spirit and the soul, heart, the essence and sense of reader, calibrator and expressor of feelings from your soul. The experience of the chemical reaction within you is a metaphysical phenomenon and a very advanced metaphysical formula science. It's your heart that beats the love of the force of free will and free freedom. Heart loves you always, never forget that. because you seem to forget to love and respect it back way too often in a society of today where money is supposed to be a god and alcohol your savior. That's the biggest lie you could ever live in. Don't betray your heart for something as foolish as money and alcohol. It's with the energies of heart and mind you dive, surf, swim, and plunge within your own emotion as well as the surroundings' energies. Love decides the strength of the force you yourself can handle and are extremely important to understand. It's a beautiful feeling, but also an utterly important measurement where your borders within your entire force existence are. Love is holy faith love within the force and a perfected combination of mindly and heartly matters. Worry are commonly known to us as a feeling but are merely one of thousands of advanced map impulses in a very advanced chemical map for calibrators as well. It's an explorer of the unknown and unaware rather than love that are the aware known borderline in exploring and surfing the waves of the force. Worry today is only used in one direction only, hence an abuse of as a feeling and therefore it more often a harmful feeling rather than the beautiful feeling it actually is. You should treat all your feelings preciously and act interpretive with them rather than judge upon them. Worry is just one of all of our emotions, but same goes for all of them. Emotions is just a signal system. Never forget that. We react upon signals that has been predefined long time ago. Forget your previous school and relearn them as signals for your own calibrations. Fear, hate, love, etc. All brand new schools in the calibrational lifestyle. Soul, the very core of your existence. The negative of your spirit and is as vital can be. You cannot neglect it because if you neglect it, you not only disrespect the soul, you rape both the spirit and the soul. Your entire person, in other words. Think about it for a while. Our souls are base plates for our bare necessities and gives us the roots to our spirits. Your soul is so vital for your entire existence and it's limitless. You can nurture your soul and give it several cores with the aid of reincarnation soul, pathing and achievement of universal codes. No matter what your choices are, always respect the soul in you. There are no limitations in the soul. Reincarnation, the rebirth of a soul and spirit. It's usually known as the rebirth of an earlier life, but can also be an achievement in metaverse. Universal death codes, the complete achievement in reaching full power variables in universal coding. It is one of the reasons to versipathing. It's done when you are reaching a mutual agreement with another ancient soul spirit shard, since it becomes a new core of yourself in your entity's existence, and is a very delicate journey to do, and takes lots of devotion from you both. Not until the agreement mutually has been reached and met you have actually pathed the reincarnation in its completion. Code. Everything is code everywhere and nowhere is codes of nature or universe and metaverse. Not as in the movie Matrix, even though that's code as well, but codes as in death codes or love codes or any type of code. Sensual codes or sexual codes. Code, it's all code. Carnational codes can be both natural codes from elements of nature such as the wind, trees, or animal life, as well as universal civilizations. Coexistential or death code, you never know what piece of code you get when rewarded with them till later. Even though some seems obvious at first, they might fill a much more profound and deeper purpose later on. Not to forget the most important codes, there are holy codes. Codes comes to you as any form. I like to call fragmental code for gray prints, since that's what they are till you are able to make something out of it. Codes comes in visions, but also in broad daylight in everyday life, not just weird dreams or state of beings. Codes can and are achieved in metaphysical pathings. By achieving behavioral patterns or codes you build or enhance sides or behaviors within yourself in any direction. But everything is code in more ways than that. You see codes in everything, only you come to call them images, colors, lines, dots, or objects, but it's all code, dear. Fragmental reincarnation. The incarnation is when only some pattern/fragments or a trait from either soul or spirit is achieved, and it's done in the very same way as reincarnation, only here you can program it a bit or adjust it is more appropriate way to express it here. Fragmental or partly universal death codes, hence the talk about gray print, blueprint, and so on as well. It can be about a trait such as the bravery or about enhancing the feminine side. The neutral directional, the hyphen surrounded by one blank space on each side of it. It is used in this book as a power variable compiler of flows, which means that each word separated by the hyphen is equal in all direction and is always fueled / injected with the base plate that is always the first word / phrase before the semicolon symbol. So by gathering or stating a base plate, that base plate becomes the roots of the rest of the power variables, that is the branches of that newly combined entity. Here comes an example and a taste of one of the beautiful plants you will find here in later coming content in this book: respect, faith, mutuality, diversities, sexualism, love, nature, elements, dimensions, senses, emotions, heart, mind, soul, spirit, dignity, humbleness, nothing, everything, life, death. Reflection is a synonym for pondering, thinking about, as well as an opposite visual of an entity. Reflection in this metaphysical terminology is a verb in the form of re-pre, as well as flections in the mirror itself. You reflect over life events from both third person as well as first person. Flection is also a warlock trait and a defense. You reflect in order to be able to preflect over the tomorrow time's crossroads of choices to be made. Reflectional thinking serves purposes of learning from the past, as well as see the presence and to reveal and become aware about the future possibilities that lies ahead. Conceptual time concept. This is something I use here in this book in order to be able to dissect even the smallest entity in its nature, as well as to be able to use the concept of behavioral patterns. You are already familiar with the terminology of past time, present time, future time. Only you probably are satisfied by using the short term of them as the past, the present / here and now, and the future, anything that will become. Time is an indicator of sequenced appearing events, no matter the form of them. Time in metaverse is a yin and yang and dimension itself, showing existing steps as well as non-existent. I also utilize now time, which refers to this very moment we always exist in and is never 1 second ago nor 1 second ahead, but always right now. Perfect time is the exact amount of time it actually is about, no matter what the nature of an entity is. The perfect time manager I keep in this book as a variable represented and personated with death. Death never ends life. Life ends life either by natural causes or premature causes. Death only deals with afterlife in the sense of redistribution of life energies that are just as active even if the entity's reproduction lifespan ends. So doesn't the energies that the entity has functioned as a container for. Death simply makes sure the energies are as they should, and then makes sure they have somewhere to continue their journey in a more freely form than before. Death is never late and never early. Death is always in perfect time. Tomorrow time, I use in order to show you the direction of when something takes place, and it also shows that in that context the future is also a part of that particular context. Tomorrow time does never belong to the past, even though the event of its own nature will eventually do just that, belong to the past. And when it does, the statement of that event's tomorrow time is no longer in a state of true, but is changed into a true statement of past time and same time. All time is a statement that refers to a continuously active choice and only remains true as long as there always is an active will to maintain that statement actively, and will automatically turn into a false as soon that will isn't there. All time, however, as stated, is only about an active choice when that is what has been declared for that particular statement. The only three other thing that exist in a static all-time mode at all time, no matter will or liking of it, is exist, change, and relativity. We do exist in time, and that's a fact of today. We do exist in space, and that's a fact of today. We do exist in movement, and that's a fact of today. We can never escape any of those three facts, and that's a fact of today, since if we remove one of them, we no longer exist in same form as of today. If we remove time, we are all of a sudden existing in a phenomena and entity. Science of today like to call white hole, which is their definition of the opposite to black hole, the ones that exist in space. Science claims that inside a white hole time stands still. However, even though that is the nature of a white hole's, inside the entity of the white hole still has an outside where time still keeps moving on. Relativity is a natural outcome from existence and nature itself, and is a part of any nature that involves the three factors of time, space, movement, and that's the reality we exist in today. Even the entity of a white hole, whose existence resides within the same perimeters of relativity, and since its entity resides within this, exists as a part of space, even though within itself other rules apply. However, even these rules apply to relativity. This was already explained with a more advanced formula created by Laozi, considered to be one of the founders of philosophical Taoism. A single symbol he came to call yin and yang. The original and true form of yin and yang is actually in a shape of an orb very much like a planet. But the only reason for Laozi to present it in that way is in order for a person to be able to see it as a concept. The orb in reality is actually our existence and our opportunity of life in this part of universe. That orb exists within a space and is in constant rotation, which is its movement, and the black and white color inside this orb is equally constantly growing and shrinking, so even if the orb looks completely black or completely white, it never stays that way in time, but always keep changing its inner color form. The two-dimensional presentation we see today is just a way to draw the understanding in normal art made by pen and paper. The chance that a person would live to see a real yin and yang orb looking the same way it's usually illustrated on paper is quite slim, even if you choose to sit and stare at it your entire life, since it never follows a specific pattern, which in its own nature actually is its natural pattern. This fact doesn't change anything for your everyday life, since its truth didn't start to become true when Einstein said it nor when Laozi said it. That has been a truth all along, no matter if we have chosen to understand it or not. Not even Laozi wasn't the only one to reach that understanding, but probably most likely the Native Americans, and not to forget the Mayan civilization that has clearly understood and utilized relativity formulas when looking upon the knowledge they chose to share with us. We do have a great advantage by understanding it, though. By doing that, we will give ourselves a great advantage, since that truth existed long before the human race did. It really has nothing to do whether we can live an exciting life or not. And it's that very fact that not only gives us the opportunity to direct our future, but also enables us to calibrate it in any direction we like at the cost of effort. Your life is relative in the sense that you, and only you, are responsible for what you chose to make of it and how much of your own time you chose to invest in different skill sets like educational training, physical training, metaphysical training, sexual training, and social behavior. You are the one living and experiencing your life, and it is yours to be lived, but also yours to be taken responsibility of. Life will always be too advanced and complex for a single human life cycle to be able to know or master everything, or to be able to do everything and even more understandable all of them at the same time. We are all different, not just in our physical appearance, but also in mentalities with their strengths and weaknesses. What you can do is to equip yourself with as good tools as possible in order to actually live the life you actually would like to live. Unfortunately, too many people sabotage for themselves by choosing to believe in lies that in their sense makes life easier for them, but what they usually realize too late is by doing that they also prevent themselves from understanding what truly makes them feel happy and satisfied in their own lifetime. Life will never be easy. Responsibility will never happen by itself, nor will happiness or joy as well as love. These are all entities that will always need to be fueled and maintained as well as allowed by yourself in order to experience them. Own time is an entity's life cycle and can be both a life form as well as a series of events. Same time is when several, more than one entity, or within a single entity's own entity coexist in a perfect sync during a moment of time. The most oddly behavior that you will start to see more of, and might get stuck in yourself, is the exact same time experience, which can be quite tricky to get out of. But if you ever get stuck in one of those, you can always try to break it by touching your genitals, and if you notice you're still in the exact same time experience, you can either choose to have sex with your opposite/s, or to sit down on the ground and start focusing on the sky or roof, depending where you are. The biggest reason you might get stuck in one of those is because I just made you aware about the phenomena/entity, and anyone that has read this book will have much enough common understanding for that to happen. We are all different. Will always remain true as long as we are equipped with free will. However, there are extremistical concepts within political movements, as well as both religions and isms like Nazism, that are all against the truth of human nature, and wants us all to be in one specific way and never accept our free will, nor our true natural way of diversity. Those concepts will, however, always fail in long-time relations, and will for sure lead to the end of this opportunity of life. Our existence will always depend on that there is many people enough that dares to actively choose to say yes to Mother Nature's perfection just like it is. Because when enough people dares to come out of the closet and say, yes, I love life, and my humble opportunity to coexist with it much enough to live my entire life without myself ending it prematurely, there will always be enough will to make the necessary changes in order to always make sure that this opportunity of life in our part of universe will continue to exist for eternity in infinity. Trust me when I say, that's a very, very long time. And to keep up that kind of willpower, no other solution than diversity is our greatest strength will ever succeed in that type of goal, since boredom of life leads to prematurely death and very destructive behavior before that. Hence, behavioral patterns such as Nazism can never be considered anything else but failure in existence. These types of destructive behavioral patterns are just one example of how dangerous it can be if we don't understand relativity seriously. Poetry Onmo Justitia, poetry and justice, is justice in motion. Justice alive and calibrating truth as it is, and not as it could be. The purest form of justice, and the only form exists, and nature accepts law. Enforcements of their own kin. Onmo is holy, and I refer to both as poetry and justice, as many of you already got to understand it, but I also refer to it as poetry Onmo justice. Poetry Onmo Justitia is when an entity's soul and spirit is being evicted before exist and nature. You do that when you commit true soul-searching and do it thoroughly. When your soul and spirit stand at the brink of exist and nature for its final purpose here in existence. The most beautiful achievement you can imagine. Once again, don't worry. We are still on the same page, you and I. Hi, this is Medusa Loveheart, and I have a proposal for you. You all get to know me as Medusa DB Loveheart, but I prefer to shorten it to Medusa Loveheart. Comfy? All right then. Here we go. Introduction. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself for you. My correct name today is Medusa DB Loveheart in today time. In other words, when you read this text, but you can call me Medusa Loveheart, and I'm a Grandmaster Calibrator. I will here give you an idea, a picture of my complex mind as well as personality, show you what will be covered throughout this book and what to anticipate. I am a so-called true natural-born calibrator. It means that I'm true in my nature and that I admit that I was produced naturally from a female and male entity intercourse. It also means that my entity follows the calibrational lifestyle and has done since childhood. It also shows that I admit myself as a humanoid entity that accepts that I'm a natural animal and species just like any other species. My entity took its first breath in 1974 on the landmass defined as Sweden in the capital Stockholm and is blessed with a young appearance. I tend to describe my life as the cycle of a butterfly in the sense that I first was an egg, in my case a sperm, and an egg that was blended together in the beautiful act of love-making. Then my life was a so-called larva when I as a child started my paths as Tichari years old when I dived into the dimension of time and made my first visit into the domain of death. Then my soul and spirit soothingly appeared as the last warlock 3 years later when I harshly had to define my own purposes and goals about and for myself, which is an opposite direction of a shaman's arrival, who usually arrives through dreams where their shaman animal or entity reveals their true purpose. As a larva, I remained for over 30 years gathering nutritions or natural and universal codes when it comes to my entity. During this period, I explored, dived, surfed, climbed, and embraced all my emotions and moods within me, always nurturing my own faith in all kinds of direction. I explored all kinds of religions, isms, myths, and folklores. I traveled through time and space within evolution and history. I have seen the horror in beauty and the glory in chaos. I see romance in darkness and hope in emptiness. I am a New Age alchemist and metaphysician whose soul is the last warlock, and the soul roots resides in the element of pure holy faith love. Gizmo Strange Love isn't just a universal code / reincarnation as an accomplishment in partly of my very own total picture of completeness, but also my first soul path, both from nature and universal from the domain of death. To put it shortly, I'm a freak of nature with a big heart and great awareness. My instrument is the thought, and my rhythm is as servant of love and truth. One of my true tools is true faith, and I am a believer and follower of the one and biggest true force of this universe, pure true love. The force is everywhere, not just love, but in many shapes and forms. My path is nowhere and everywhere. I'm the warlock that walks the between and the middle just as much as nowhere and everywhere. I'm a protector of the force, and my only true guide is exist nature. I'm a professional definer that calibrates reality's exo-relativities in the sign of my own soul's full nature. I'm a philosophical calibrator. My mind is spectral and an astral werewolf. My body is she-male, both man and woman, in motion, and its taste are bisexual and versatility, and always part of my pictures. The true color of my heart is purple. I always define in all possible directions, senses, feelings as well as dimensions, astral planes, terrestrials, and in nothing where everything of course also is a part. I work with pictures in completeness as well as fragments incomplete. My heart and flesh is rising from bare necessities, true faith. That is my main tool, and my heart in the astral planes is a director of pure love from the element and dimension of love. My spirit's faith always resides in the opportunity of life and its mother nature. I use tools from both everything and nothing. I work with different types of mind mapping systems, both calibrating and calculating ones. One of the basic formulas I'm using is the philosophical version and definition, more powerful than the mathematical relativity theory, and the only total ultimate optimal final conclusion. It is very beautiful. Here it comes. Nothing is everything, everything is only a part of / from nothing, therefore / hence, everything is relative, in time, movement, space, XO. It is just another direction. This is the formula you must understand with all your senses in order to be able to create the yin-yang types of variables I do, and is for sure not a doomsday philosophy, but merely a tool in order to read in the relative reality we already exist in. Defining in philosophy is like programming without any limits. Like art where my sentence equals a stroke from the paintbrush, hence the structure of this book. This book itself is a picture in completeness where every stroke of my brush counts just as much, each sentence, each word, each page, the book itself as well as the writer. New Age alchemist Medusa Loveheart, me, myself, and I as one. I use powerful variables whose size limits are equal to relativity. When working in cooperation with soul and spirit, there is only one way, and that is to stay true to yourself as good as you possible ever can. When working together, you confront your demons with love, understanding, fear, happiness, sadness, hate, respect, dignity, sexuality, pride, shame, true, soul-searching, and embrace every single inch of them, and that is only possible in true mode. The key here was embrace, which is an opposite direction to exo become. Your own becoming are your own choices to make and should be done with care and preferable after you walk the path of true soul-searching. Truths are always simple as long as they are kept alone. Perceptions of the truths clouds and makes them harder to intercept. Even when they are kept alone, they still are relative to the surroundings, and therefore even a so-called truth can't be taken for sure nor granted. The sum up of me, myself and I, death, definer, oracle X, O miracle, enlightener, demon of time, alchemist of exo, philosopher of eternities, embracer of diversities, the brewer of weird Easter eggs, ancient, alchemy metaphysician, relative, warlock, perfect at Iman at, New Age philosopher, intergender, Dao Buddha, the female in me, the reincarnated female Medusa Loveheart with the tree of Medusa, reincarnated behavioral pattern of Yoda as a universal definer with blueprints and achievements for that soul shard, the white devil queen Vitra, the queen, the seventh seal, and the brave of Jeanne d'Arc. Here you see a bunch of power variables of energies or different types of code that has been achieved and built together and shaped out from metaverse and blueprints and gray prints, compiled and reincarnated or incarnated into myself. They all represent behavioral pattern and soul shards adopted, integrated, sealed, and lived by me. We read energies from artifacts and from all cultures, isms, and religions in the calibrational Orbish archaeology way, communicating in the force with ancient as well as newly arrived soul spirit shards. In Metaverse you find all kinds of energies. Me, I'm a New Age alchemist, the philosopher, that brews images between colors, myths, religions, reality, relativities, ideologies, timelines, senses, healing, ancient knowledge, and anything that comes in my path. Myself, the definer, the intergender in motion, the woman and man in coexistence of harmony inside. My minds define, dissect, redefine, observes outcomes and creates sum-ups and define again. Then I build paths and bridges with opposite/relational/linear reflections, directional thinking methods, among some of the ways to reach new agreements and new paths to grow, coexist, and cooperate with. By working thoroughly, future time is invested and taken care of. I, the last warlock, Gizmo Strangelove. A warlock that follows the shaman path among others, investigating relations and coexistence, respecting life, soul and force, a messenger, enlightener and guide, daredevil with mentalities and the relative truths we live among today. fueling the Oracle Exo miracle inside me. Dao Buddha, a new garden of Buddhism, true faith, poetry onmo justice, student of mutual, relational thinking, the force, eroticity, love, nothing and everything, exist and nature, evolution, my reincarnations, universal death codes, Medusa DB Loveheart, a master of universe, ancient, creator, Yoda, universal definer, ancient alien soul shard, Gizmo strange love, the last warlock from domain of death, Sun Wukong Thun Wukong, manifestation in me, my paths, true faith, exist nature, the force, mutuality, love, poetry onmo justice, eroticy, sexualism, evolution, Tai Chi, the way of the jellyfish, Feng Shui, inner balance, martial training, Dim Mak Dan Mai, true follower of the force, true guide exist nature, warlock, protector of nothing and everything, seeker of truth. Dao Buddha pondering heart stones, share your knowledge and you shall receive. Mind is power. The power of love is the force of the heart and soul, mind over matter, nothing under us, everything. The force. Time is important. If you know the art of how to invest in it, you start build your own life for real. Daredevils come in many shapes and forms. A demon reflects what you make them to and nothing else. You and no one else, but you yourself is the only one that is responsible for your very own life and the quality of its content. You are the only one responsible for your own actions and its outcomes, your thoughts, and the mentalities you firmly believe and live. You are your own master and commander in your own life cycle in your entire lifetime, and you are the only one you can hold responsible for your own path choices. Trust your heart, believe in your mind, and listen to your soul. It's just another direction X. Oh, everything is relative. Humanity needs to shape up, believe, respect, and care in yourself, your surroundings, and the planet that gives you and your life an opportunity to coexist. Enhanced senses bring you closer to any direction. The future is never further away than your next moment.